I never thought I'd hear my mother-in-law plotting to take my daughter away from me. But there I was, frozen in the hallway of my own home, listening to her poison my husband's mind. Raymond, darling, you have to face facts. Andrea isn't stable enough to raise Tori. Look how she handled the birthday party today, completely overwhelmed by a few guests. What kind of mother can't even manage her child's first birthday? My name is Andrea, and that moment changed everything. I'd spent the last hour cleaning up after Tori's party while Martina held court in our living room, criticizing every decision I'd made, from the organic cake to the modest decorations. Now I understood why she'd insisted on staying after everyone else left. Mom, Andrea's just tired. She works full-time and… Exactly my point. A proper mother would be home with her child. Your sister managed it beautifully with her 3. I gripped the wall, my knuckles white. The party had been lovely until Martina arrived with her entourage of society friends, turning my intimate celebration into what felt like a society event. Tori had been overwhelmed by the crowd, crying until I took her upstairs for a quiet moment. Remember how she disappeared with Tori during the party? Martina's voice dripped with manufactured concern. That's not normal behavior, Raymond. A child needs stability, structure. Your father and I could provide that. My blood ran cold. I'd known from the day Raymond and I married that Martina disapproved of me, the middle-class teacher who'd stolen her precious son from the ranks of eligible society women. But this was different. This was calculated. I don't know, Mom. Raymond's hesitation made my heart sink. Why wasn't he defending me more strongly? I stepped into the doorway, making my presence known. I think I should be part of any conversation about my daughter's welfare. Martina's perfectly made-up face showed no embarrassment at being caught. Instead, she smiled that practice smile I'd seen her use at countless charity events. Andrea, darling, we were just discussing Tori's future. As grandparents, we naturally want what's best for her. What's best for her is her mother, I said, moving to stand beside Raymond. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Of course, dear. No one's suggesting otherwise. Martina stood, smoothing her designer dress. I simply pointed out that with your challenging schedule, you might appreciate more support. That's all. The way she said challenging schedule made my job sound like a character flaw. I'd worked hard for my position at the elementary school, proud to be teaching 3rd grade while raising my daughter. I managed just fine, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Tori is happy, healthy, and loved. Is she? Martina raised an eyebrow. I noticed she seemed quite distressed today. And last week at my house, she was perfectly calm all afternoon. Perhaps she responds better to a more structured environment? That's when I noticed the phone in her hand, recording our conversation. My stomach lurched as I realized this wasn't just casual criticism. She was building a case. Raymond, I turned to my husband. Could you please ask your mother to leave? It's been a long day, and Tori will be up from her nap soon. He shifted uncomfortably. Mom's just trying to help, Andrea. Maybe we should consider… Consider what? I cut him off. Letting your mother take over raising our daughter? Martina gathered her designer purse, the picture of wounded dignity. I can see you're too emotional for a reasonable discussion right now. Raymond, we'll talk more later. She paused at the door. Do think about what I said. After all, we all want what's best for precious Tori. After she left, I rounded on Raymond. How could you let her talk about me like that? She means well, he said weakly. You know how she is about family. Family? I laughed bitterly. She's been trying to push me out since day one, and now she wants our daughter? Upstairs, Tori began to cry, probably roused by our voices. I started toward the stairs, but Raymond caught my arm. Maybe Mom has a point about your stress levels, he said quietly. You have been on edge lately. I jerked away from him, suddenly seeing everything clearly. This wasn't just Martina's usual interference. This was the beginning of something bigger. She'd been laying the groundwork for months. The concerned phone calls to Raymond, the subtle criticisms of my parenting, the offers to take Tori for extended visits. As I climbed the stairs to comfort my daughter, I made a silent vow. I would fight for my family with everything I had. Martina Schmidt had no idea who she was dealing with. Looking back now, I realized that was the moment everything changed. The day I stopped trying to please my mother-in-law and started planning how to save my daughter from her clutches. I just didn't know then how far Martina would go, or how far I would have to go to stop her. The manila envelope felt heavy in my hands as I stared at the court documents inside. My fingers trembled as I read the words again. Temporary custody granted to Martina. The rest of the text blurred through my tears. 3 months had passed since Tori's birthday party, and everything had unraveled with frightening speed. Raymond had moved out 2 weeks ago, claiming he needed space to think. Now I knew exactly what kind of thinking he'd been doing. My phone buzzed. Martina's number. I declined the call, but a text followed immediately. The police will be accompanying me to collect Tori at 2 p.m. Please have her things packed. This will be easier if you cooperate. I glanced at the clock. 11:23 a.m. Less than 3 hours. You can't do this. I typed back, my fingers shaking. She's my daughter. The court order says otherwise, dear. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I called Raymond immediately. He answered on the 4th ring. How could you? I demanded, not bothering with pleasantries. Your mother? Really? Andrea, please, he sighed. It's temporary, just until you get better. Get better? There's nothing wrong with me. Mom showed me the videos, the outbursts, the emotional instability. Videos she deliberately provoked. She's been planning this for months. Listen, he said, his voice taking on that condescending tone I'd grown to hate. Mom has resources. She can give Tori everything we can't right now. The best schools, activities, stability. She has stability. She has love. She has her mother. Who works full-time and can barely afford... Don't you dare. I cut him off. Don't you dare make this about money. Your mother's been manipulating you since day one, and you're too blind to see it. The doorbell rang, making me jump. Through the window, I saw Abigail, Martina's closest friend, standing on my porch. What fresh hell was this? I have to go, I told Raymond. But this isn't over. I opened the door, ready for battle, but Abigail's face wasn't wearing its usual society smile. Can I come in? She asked quietly. There's something you need to know. I hesitated, then stepped aside. Abigail perched on the edge of my couch, looking uncomfortable in my modest living room. Martina doesn't know I'm here, she said. But I couldn't... I had to warn you. She's been planning this for almost a year. What? Abigail pulled out her phone, showing me a series of text messages. She started gathering evidence last Christmas, recording your conversations, documenting every time Tori cried or you seemed stressed. She has a whole file of carefully edited videos making you look unstable. My legs gave out, and I sank into a chair. Why are you telling me this? Because she did the same thing to her sister-in-law 15 years ago. That family moved across the country to escape her. I can't watch it happen again. Upstairs, I heard Tori singing to herself as she played with her dolls. The sound nearly broke me. What am I supposed to do? I whispered. She has money, connections, everything. Fight smart, not hard, Abigail said, standing. Martina's weakness is her reputation. Everything she does is about maintaining the perfect image. She headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Andrea. She's planning a big charity gala next month. All her social circle will be there. Might be worth getting an invitation. After she left, I ran upstairs to Tori's room. She looked up from her dolls with that bright smile that made everything worthwhile. Mommy, look, Princess Sparkle is having a tea party. I sat down beside her, pulling her close. Baby, we need to pack some things. You're going to stay with Grandma for a little while. But why? Her lower lip trembled. Just for a little bit, while Mommy takes care of some things. But I promise you, I'm going to fix this. When Martina arrived with the police, I was ready. I handed over Tori's favorite stuffed rabbit, her special blanket, and my heart. I'll see you soon, sweetheart, I whispered, hugging her tight. Martina's triumphant smile as she led my daughter away told me everything I needed to know. She thought she'd won. But Abigail's visit had given me something precious: hope and a plan. As I watched the car drive away, I pulled out my phone and Googled Martina's annual spring charity gala. Time to get myself an invitation to the social event of the season. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Just sign here to volunteer for the spring charity gala, the elderly woman said, sliding the form across the desk. We're always looking for new faces. 2 weeks of strategizing had led me to this moment. The local community center, where Martina's sister Eliana coordinated volunteer activities, was my way in. I'd changed my appearance just enough: darker hair, glasses, and clothes that screamed eager social climber rather than grieving mother. Thank you, I smiled, signing with slightly altered handwriting. I've heard such wonderful things about the gala. Oh? Eliana looked up, studying me more carefully. My cousin attended last year. She couldn't stop talking about how elegantly Mrs. Schmidt handled everything. Eliana's expression shifted subtly. Yes, my sister does have a talent for handling things. Something in her tone made me look closer. There was a story there. I'm just excited to be involved, I continued, even if it's just arranging flowers or serving drinks. Actually, Eliana said, we need someone to help coordinate the silent auction. Previous experience? 3 years organizing fundraisers for my daughter's... I stopped, swallowing hard. For the elementary school. Eliana's eyes softened. You have a daughter? Had, I whispered, the pain in my voice entirely real. I lost her recently. It wasn't technically a lie. I had lost Tori, just not the way Eliana might assume. I'm so sorry. She touched my hand. I know something about losing family. Would you like to get coffee? The cafe next door makes excellent lattes. 20 minutes later, we sat in a quiet corner booth. Eliana stirred her coffee thoughtfully. My sister, she said suddenly, has always been obsessed with perfection. The perfect family, the perfect image, the perfect control. I held my breath, waiting. Years ago, Eliana shook her head. Never mind. The past is past. But be careful working with her. Martina can be intense about her projects. Does she help with the auction? Oh yes, she oversees everything, especially since she got custody of her granddaughter. I gripped my cup tighter. Granddaughter? Yes, poor thing. Apparently the mother was unstable. Eliana trailed off, frowning. Though honestly, I've met that little girl. She asks for her mother constantly. My heart clenched. What does Mrs. Schmidt say about that? She changes the subject, just like she did when... Eliana stopped again, looking troubled. When what? She leaned forward. Can you keep a secret? Years ago, Martina did something similar with our brother's wife, convinced everyone she was unfit. That family fled to Canada to escape her influence. I haven't seen my nieces in 15 years. My hands shook so badly I had to set down my cup. Why didn't you stop her? I tried. But Martina, she's very good at twisting things, making you doubt what you see. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. She touched my arm. Are you all right? You've gone pale. Fine, I managed. Just reminded me of something. Eliana studied me for a long moment. Then her eyes widened slightly. Oh my God, she whispered. You're her, the mother. I froze, ready to bolt, but her hand gripped mine tighter. Don't worry, she said quietly. I should have seen it sooner. The timing, the story about your daughter. She pulled out her phone, typed something, and showed me the screen. It was a photo of Tori from yesterday, looking sad while Martina posed her in front of a piano. She's not happy, Eliana said, and neither was I, watching history repeat itself. Please, I whispered. Don't tell Martina you know. Tell her? Eliana laughed bitterly. I've been waiting years for someone to stand up to her. The silent auction position is yours. It'll put you in direct contact with her social circle. Just be careful. Martina's not above destroying anyone who threatens her perfect world. As I left the community center, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Eliana. Dinner at my house tomorrow? I have photos from other events you might find interesting, including some of Martina's more unguarded moments. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Finally, I had an ally. And more importantly, I had access to Martina's world. That night, I added Eliana's name to my growing map of connections and evidence. Below Abigail's warning about the gala, beside the note about Martina's pattern with other families, soon I'd have enough to expose the truth. Soon, I'd have my daughter back. But first, I had a silent auction to coordinate. She's filing adoption papers next week, Abigail whispered, glancing nervously around the empty coffee shop. Once those go through, you'll never see Tori again. My coffee cup clattered against its saucer. She can't do that. Raymond would never. Raymond signed the preliminary paperwork yesterday. Martina convinced him it's the only way to ensure Tori has a stable future. 1 month of infiltrating Martina's social circle had yielded countless stories of manipulation, but this was different. This was endgame. I need proof, I said. Something concrete. Check your email. I recorded Martina discussing it at yesterday's committee meeting. She doesn't know I keep my phone running during these sessions. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone. The audio file was there. Martina's voice crystal clear as she bragged about her plans to finally make things official with her granddaughter. Why are you helping me? I asked Abigail. She twisted her wedding ring. Because 20 years ago, I was you. Different situation, different child, same Martina. I was too scared to fight back then. I've regretted it ever since. The cafe door chimed. A woman with a press badge walked in, catching my eye with deliberate intent. Zara, the local journalist Eliana had connected me with. Ladies, she said, sliding into our booth. I hear we have something interesting to discuss. I played the audio file. Zara's eyebrows rose higher with each passing second. This is gold, she said, but we need more. Photos, witnesses, a pattern of behavior. I have photos, Abigail said. Lots of them. Martina when she thinks no one's watching. The way she treats Tori when the cameras aren't rolling. And I have witnesses, I added. 3 families she's done this to before. Eliana helped me track them down. Zara pulled out her notebook. Tell me everything. For the next hour, we built the case. Abigail's photos showed Martina's mask slipping. Harsh words, grabbed arms, tearful children. My witnesses painted a pattern of manipulation spanning decades. Zara scribbled furiously. This is bigger than a custody battle, she said finally. This is about power, control, and systematic emotional abuse hidden behind society's perfect veneer. My phone buzzed. A text from Eliana. Emergency. Come to my house now. I have to go, I said, standing. But Zara, how soon can you run this story? Give me a week to fact-check everything. But when it hits? She smiled grimly. Martina won't know what hit her. 15 minutes later, I rushed into Eliana's living room to find her pacing. Look at this. She thrust her tablet at me. It was an email from Martina to her lawyer, accidentally copied to Eliana. Once the adoption is final, we'll move to Europe. I've already enrolled Tori in a Swiss boarding school. The distance will help her forget all about. She's planning to leave the country, I whispered. Next month, Eliana confirmed, right after the gala. The gala. An idea formed. That's where we'll stop her. Everyone who matters will be there. Her whole carefully constructed world in one room. She'll never let you in. She won't know it's me. I'm on the planning committee, remember? And I have these. I pulled out the donor list I'd been working on. Every major player in her social circle, all in one place. Eliana's eyes lit up. The silent auction. We could set up a presentation, something that seems like it's celebrating her. Until it doesn't. I finished. But we'll need help. You have it, said a voice from the doorway. Abigail stood there with Zara. We followed you. Hope you don't mind. Mind? I laughed. I need you both. Zara's story, Abigail's photos, Eliana's insider knowledge. And your courage, Eliana added. We can do this. We spent the next hour planning. Each person had a role, each piece of evidence its place in the revelation to come. As we finished, my phone chimed with a video message from Raymond. Tori sat at Martina's grand piano, looking lost as Martina forced her small hands through complex scales. Mommy does it better. Tori's voice wavered. I want Mommy. Mommy's not here. Martina's sharp voice replied. I'm your family now. I looked up at my unlikely allies, the society friend, the whistleblower sister, the crusading journalist. 2 weeks until the gala. Let's make them count. Zara raised her coffee cup in a toast. To bringing down the queen of manipulation. To saving Tori, I corrected. To justice, Eliana and Abigail said together. The pieces were in place. Now we just had to survive until the gala. Andrea, we need to talk. Raymond's voice behind me nearly made me drop the auction catalog I was organizing at the community center. I turned slowly, grateful for my disguise. I don't know who. Drop the act, he said quietly. Eliana told me everything. My heart stopped. She would when she saw what I found in Mom's study. He pulled out a thick folder. Bank statements, court documents, letters to her lawyer dating back to before Tori was even born. She's been planning this for years. I glanced around the empty room. Why are you here? Because I was an idiot, he said, running a hand through his hair. Because I let her manipulate me just like she's done to everyone else. Because our daughter cries herself to sleep every night asking for you. My hands clenched. And you're just now noticing? I'm trying to make it right. He opened the folder. These prove she's been transferring large sums to the judge who granted her custody. There's more. Documentation of her threatening other families, proof she bribed witnesses. Why should I trust you now? Because I found this. He pulled out a document with tomorrow's date. She's filing for full adoption and immediate permission to leave the country. Once that goes through, we'll never see Tori again. I sank into a chair. We're planning something at the gala. I know. Eliana told me. But you need these documents to make it stick legally. He placed the folder in front of me. I've made copies. Use them. Raymond. I studied his face. She's your mother. Are you sure? She stopped being my mother the moment she tried to steal my daughter. He headed for the door, then turned back. Andrea? I'm sorry. For everything. After he left, I called an emergency meeting. Within an hour, everyone gathered at Eliana's house. These are perfect, Zara said, flipping through the documents. Combined with our other evidence, this is nuclear. But we have to move fast, Abigail added. If Martina suspects anything... She doesn't, Eliana interrupted. She's too focused on the gala. It's her moment to show off her perfect family before whisking Tori away to Switzerland. I spread the evidence across the table. Raymond's documents, Abigail's photos, witness statements, bank records, Zara's draft article. Walk me through the plan again, I said. Zara pointed to her laptop. I've prepared a video presentation, supposedly highlighting Martina's charitable work, but halfway through it transitions to show her true nature. Witness testimonies, surveillance footage, everything. I've arranged the seating chart, Abigail added. All her victims' families will be in the front row. They're flying in specially. The tech team's on board, Eliana said. They'll lock down the exits when the presentation starts. No one leaves until it's done. And I've alerted certain law enforcement contacts. Zara smiled. They'll be there to handle any legal implications. My phone buzzed, a text from Raymond. Mom's showing off Tori to her friends again. She's exhausted, but Mom won't let her rest. I showed them the message. We have to end this. 2 days until the gala, Eliana said. Everything's ready. Almost everything, I corrected, pulling out a small box. I need one more favor. Inside was a silver locket, Tori's favorite, with our picture inside. I'd managed to slip it to her once during a supervised visit, but Martina had confiscated it. Can someone make sure she gets this before the gala? She needs to know Mommy's coming for her. Abigail took the locket. I'm having tea with them tomorrow. I'll find a way. As we finalized details, another text came through, this time from an unknown number. It was a photo of Tori sleeping, clutching her old stuffed rabbit, tears still wet on her cheeks. The caption read, "She needs her mom. Don't fail tomorrow." I looked up at my allies. My friends now, really. We won't fail. No, Eliana agreed. We won't. For Tori, Abigail said. For every child Martina's tried to steal, Zara added. For justice, I finished. We worked late into the night, checking and double-checking every detail. When I finally left, Eliana hugged me tight. Get some rest, she said. Tomorrow we prepare. The next day we take my sister down. Driving home, I passed Martina's mansion. A light was on in Tori's window. I could almost imagine her there, waiting, hoping. Hold on, baby, I whispered. Mommy's coming, and this time, no one's going to stop me. The gala was coming. Our trap was set. And Martina had no idea she was about to lose everything she'd worked so hard to steal. The grand ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and society's elite. I adjusted my wig and glasses, clipboard clutched to my chest as I directed caterers and checked sound equipment. No one looked twice at the efficient event coordinator in sensible heels. Everything's ready, Zara murmured as she passed, pretending to check her press credentials. The video's queued up. I nodded slightly, then froze as Martina swept in with Tori. My daughter wore a frilly pink dress that she would have hated under normal circumstances. Her small hand clutched the silver locket we'd managed to get to her. Smile, darling, Martina commanded, steering Tori toward a group of photographers. Show everyone how happy you are with grandmother. Tori's eyes scanned the room, and for a heart-stopping moment, they met mine. I pressed a finger to my lips. She gave the tiniest nod, then turned back to the cameras. Places, everyone, I called out, my voice disguised with a slight accent. The presentation begins in 20 minutes. Abigail appeared at my elbow. The families are all here. Front row, just as planned. And the police? Plain clothes scattered throughout. They're ready. I watched Martina work the room, showing off Tori like a prize poodle. Raymond stood near the bar, looking increasingly uncomfortable as his mother bragged about their fresh start in Switzerland. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced at exactly 8 o'clock. Please take your seats. Mrs. Schmidt's special tribute presentation is about to begin. Martina preened as she led Tori to their seats of honor. The lights dimmed and the screen lit up with carefully curated photos of Martina's charitable works. For 20 years, the narrator intoned, Martina Schmidt has been a pillar of our community. I slipped through the crowd to the tech booth. Now, I whispered to the operator. The screen flickered. Suddenly, instead of charity galas, there was Martina screaming at a terrified Tori for spilling juice on her designer rug. Then Martina threatening one of her previous victims. Photo after photo, video after video, each more damning than the last. Gasps filled the room. Martina leaped to her feet. Stop this immediately. Security, I called out. But our planted security team just stood watching. The evidence kept coming. Bank statements showing bribes, court documents revealing her pattern of manipulation, testimonies from families she'd destroyed. Who's responsible for this? Martina shrieked, spinning around wildly. I stepped into the light, removing my wig and glasses. I am. Andrea, she hissed. How dare you? No. I cut her off, my voice carrying through the microphone I'd concealed. How dare you? How dare you steal children from loving parents? How dare you traumatize innocent families? How dare you try to take my daughter? Security, remove this woman. They won't help you. Zara stood up, press badge gleaming. They're with us, just like the police officers scattered throughout this room. Tori broke free from Martina's grip and ran to me. I scooped her up, holding her close as she sobbed, "Mommy, mommy," into my shoulder. This is absurd. Martina tried to laugh, but her society friends were already backing away. These are obviously fabrications. Are they? One of the front row guests stood up. Like you fabricated evidence against me 15 years ago? Another rose. Like you threatened my family? Like you tried to steal my grandson? A third voice called out. Martina's perfect mask cracked. Raymond, tell them. Tell them I only wanted what was best. What was best? Raymond stepped forward. Was it best when you bribed Judge Harrison? When you planned to smuggle my daughter out of the country? When you destroyed evidence of Andrea's fitness as a mother? I have proof of everything, Zara announced. My expose runs tomorrow. Every detail, every victim, every manipulation. Martina lunged for Tori, but two plainclothes officers intercepted her. Martina Schmidt, one said, producing handcuffs. You're under arrest for conspiracy, evidence tampering, judicial bribery. As they led her away, still screaming about ungrateful children and her ruined reputation, I held Tori closer. Is it over, Mommy? She whispered. Yes, baby. You're coming home. Raymond approached cautiously. Andrea, Not now, I said quietly. We'll talk later. Right now, our daughter needs us both. The ballroom had erupted into chaos. Reporters pushing forward, society friends fleeing the scandal, Martina's victims sharing their stories with police. Eliana and Abigail appeared beside us. Let's get you out the back, Eliana said. The media can wait. As we slipped away, I heard Martina's final shriek. I gave you everything. I am everything. But she was wrong. She was nothing now. And we were finally free. The morning after the gala, my living room filled with police officers, lawyers, and child services representatives. Tori sat in my lap, refusing to let go even for a moment. Mrs. Schmidt's being held without bail, Detective Morris explained. The evidence of judicial tampering alone. Will I have to testify? I asked, stroking Tori's hair. Not likely. We've got dozens of witnesses, documented evidence, and 3 judges admitting to accepting bribes. She's looking at serious time. Raymond paced by the window, phone buzzing constantly. Her lawyers quit. The society boards voted to remove her from every committee. It's like watching a house of cards collapse. Mommy, Tori tugged at my sleeve. Can I show you what Grandma made me do? My heart clenched. Of course, baby. She led me to the piano we'd kept in the corner. Sitting down, her small fingers began moving mechanically through scales. 6 hours a day, she said quietly. If I made a mistake, she'd make me start over. She said it would make me perfect like her. Raymond stopped pacing. 6 hours? She told me it was just casual lessons. There's nothing casual about your mother, I said. Tori, honey, you never have to play again if you don't want to. Can I just play Twinkle Twinkle like you taught me? Of course. As Tori picked out the simple melody, smiling for the first time in weeks, the doorbell rang. Eliana and Abigail stood there with Zara. You need to see this, Zara said, holding up the morning paper. The headline screamed, Society Matriarch's Reign of Terror Exposed. It's going viral, Abigail added. 3 more families have come forward already. And that's not all. Eliana pulled out her phone. Listen to this voicemail Martina left me from jail. Martina's voice filled the room, raw with rage. You treacherous snake, my own sister. I made you what you are. I'll destroy you all. Eliana stopped the playback. There's more, but it gets worse. The police are adding witness intimidation charges. How's she handling jail? I couldn't help asking. Not well. Detective Morris smirked. Apparently orange isn't her color. Tori's piano playing stopped. Is Grandma going to jail forever? Raymond knelt beside her. She did some very bad things, sweetheart. She has to face the consequences. Like when I have to sit in timeout? Something like that. I managed, fighting back tears at her innocence. The child services representative approached. We've reviewed everything. Given the circumstances, we're recommending immediate restoration of full custody to Andrea, with supervised visitation for Raymond until the divorce proceedings. No, I interrupted. No supervision needed. Raymond was a victim too. He's still Tori's father. Raymond looked at me gratefully. I don't deserve your forgiveness. This isn't about deserving. It's about healing. All of us. Zara cleared her throat. Speaking of healing, the families Martina targeted want to meet. They're talking about starting a support group. Count us in, Raymond said firmly. It's time to break the cycle. Suddenly, Tori started playing again. Not scales or classical pieces, but a simple, happy tune she was making up on the spot. That's beautiful, I said. It's for you, Mommy, and Daddy, and Aunt Eliana and Miss Abigail and everyone who helped bring me home. The room fell silent except for her improvised melody. Even the police officers stopped their note-taking to listen. Out of the mouths of babes, Eliana whispered. Detective Morris stood. We'll need more statements later, but for now, spend time with your daughter. The DA's office will be in touch about the case. As people filed out, Abigail lingered. Andrea, thank you for doing what I couldn't all those years ago. Thank you for helping me do it. After everyone left, it was just the three of us, me, Raymond, and Tori, our broken little family starting to heal. Can we have pancakes? Tori asked. Grandma never let me have pancakes. We can have anything you want, Raymond said. Then I want pancakes with Mommy and Daddy. We moved to the kitchen, Tori directing us like a tiny conductor as we gathered ingredients. When she wasn't looking, Raymond touched my arm. I know I messed up. We'll talk later, I said. Right now, our daughter wants pancakes. As flour dusted the counter and giggles filled the air, I realized something. Martina had tried to create her version of a perfect family through control and manipulation. But here, in this messy kitchen with imperfect pancakes and genuine laughter, we'd found something better. We'd found truth. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters as Martina emerged in handcuffs. Her designer outfit had been replaced by standard prison garb, her perfectly coiffed hair now stringy and gray at the roots. 20 years, Raymond whispered, squeezing my hand. No possibility of parole for 15. I watched my former mother-in-law being led to the prison transport. She caught my eye and mouthed something that looked like, I'll destroy you. But the threat felt empty now. Ready to go home? I asked. Actually, he hesitated. I was hoping we could talk about that. We found a quiet cafe near the courthouse. Tori was at school, her real school, not the elite private academy Martina had forced her into. I've been offered a job, Raymond said. Here in town, heading up a nonprofit that helps families affected by parental alienation. That's wonderful. The thing is, he stirred his coffee endlessly. I've been staying at Eliana's, but that was temporary. And I know we're technically separated, but seeing you with Tori these past few weeks, watching you fight for her, I realized what I almost lost. What I want to fight for. Raymond, I'm not asking to move back in. I know I need to earn back your trust. But maybe we could try counseling? Start with family dinner once a week? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. It was Zara. Turn on the news now. I pulled up the local station on my phone. Footage showed police raiding Martina's mansion. Evidence of decades of financial fraud, the reporter announced. Sources say Mrs. Schmidt had been embezzling from her own charities for years. In related news, 3 more judges have stepped down amid the growing corruption scandal. She fooled everyone, Raymond said quietly. Even me. Especially me. Not everyone, I corrected. Eliana knew. Abigail suspected. They just needed someone willing to stand up to her. Like you did. My phone buzzed again. A text from Tori's teacher. Thought you'd want to see this. The attached photo showed Tori at show and tell, proudly holding up the newspaper article about Martina's conviction. My mommy, the caption quoted, says sometimes the bravest thing is telling the truth, even when people don't want to hear it. Raymond's eyes welled up. She's right, and I need to tell you my truth. I love you, Andrea. I never stopped. I just lost my way for a while. I know, I said softly. But finding your way back isn't just about love. It's about trust, respect, standing together. Then let me stand with you now. The nonprofit needs a co-director, someone who understands what families go through, who can help them fight back. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a partnership, in every sense. The cafe door chimed as Eliana and Abigail walked in. Sorry to interrupt, Eliana said, but you need to see this. She handed me a letter. It was from Martina's first victim, the sister-in-law who'd fled to Canada. We're starting a support network, Abigail explained, for all the families affected by Martina. They want you to lead it. Me? You're the one who brought her down, Eliana said. You gave everyone hope. I looked at Raymond, saw the same hope in his eyes. We could do it together, he said. Help other families heal while we heal our own. My phone lit up with another photo from Tori's teacher. This time, my daughter sat at a classroom piano, teaching another student the simple version of Twinkle Twinkle she loved. The caption read, she said everyone deserves a chance to make their own kind of music. Yes, I said finally. To all of it. The nonprofit, the support network, the counseling, the family dinners. But we take it slow. As slow as you need, Raymond promised. Eliana raised her coffee cup. To new beginnings? To truth, Abigail added. To family, Raymond said. To justice, I finished. The real kind. Outside, the media was still buzzing about Martina's downfall, but it felt distant now. We had more important things to focus on. Healing families, rebuilding trust, and creating something genuine from the ashes of false perfection. Shall we go pick up our daughter? Raymond asked. I took his hand, feeling the weight of my journey in that simple gesture. Yes, let's go make some real music. As we left the cafe, I caught my reflection in the window. I saw someone stronger than the woman who'd lost her daughter, braver than the mother who'd fought back, wiser than the wife who'd trusted too easily. I saw someone ready to build something true. And this time, no one could take it away.
I was never one for sappy goodbyes or mulling over the what-ifs of life. Amelia, 35, a manager, that was enough of an introduction for anyone. There I was, standing tall, suitcase gripping my sweating palm. The creak of those steps under my weight was like a soundtrack to this not-so-graceful exit. At the bottom of the stairs, Jeremy leaned against the doorframe, arms folded, the ghost of a smirk playing on his face. It was the smirk that said, "You won't last a week without my money." I despised that smirk. Linda, the queen of passive-aggressive comments, was perched on the arm of the plush love seat, a throne she made from judgments and sly digs. "My boy always did like headstrong," she said, inspecting her perfectly manicured nails. Zoe, the new trophy, was a human-sized Barbie perched awkwardly on the edge of the couch. Her legs were crossed so tight I wondered if she could feel her toes. "I've packed my things," I managed, my voice steady but my insides churning. It felt strange, declaring something so mundane at a moment that felt like the end of an era. Jeremy chuckled, a low, infuriating sound. "What, no tears, Amelia?" he prodded, finding humor in what he thought was my misery. It was typical Jeremy, kicking when he thought you were down. "Not for you," I shot back, clenching my jaw to keep my composure. Linda's laugh slithered out next, sharp as a knife. "Why don't you join us for dinner, one last time?" There was a challenge in her eyes, daring me to break, to show the crack in the armor I spent years fortifying. The idea was ludicrous. Who in their right mind would have a farewell dinner with their ex and a shiny new thing? But I couldn't resist the opportunity to show them that I wasn't leaving as the defeated wife. "Sure," I said, surprising even myself. "Could be fun." Zoe's eyes shot up in surprise, not expecting the guest of dishonor to accept a seat at this twisted table. Jeremy's smirk fell a notch. "Great," he said, "I'll get the wine." It was his white flag, his last attempt at playing the courteous host. Linda simply sniffed, turning her attention to Zoe. "Dear, why don't you help Jeremy with the wine? The good stuff, upstairs. You remember where it is," she said, sending Zoe off like a child on an errand. As Zoe scampered off, I noticed her heels were too high, her steps uncertain. Poor girl was walking on stilts, trying to measure up in a world where the bar was set impossibly high. "It's gonna be a long night," I mumbled under my breath, realizing that this dinner was more a game of chess than a meal. Every word would have to be calculated if I was to walk out with my head still held high. The dining room, an awkward tension hanging in the air, contrasting with the clinking sound of cutlery. Linda, sitting at the head of the table, smirks as she turns towards me. "Enjoy the meal, darling. It's not every day you sit down to something that hasn't been microwaved." I fix a smile, keeping my tone even. "Thanks, Linda. It's been hard to find time between work hours. Not like I've got the luxury to stay home." Across from me, Jeremy stirs in his seat, a hint of red creeping up his neck. "I'm on it, you know. Jobs don't just fall out of the sky, and the last place? They didn't know a good worker when they saw one." "I can't help it," I laugh. "A good worker? They practically threw you out. How much was it you cost em? Couple thousand?" Zoe, a hint of curiosity painted on her otherwise perfect face, forks a salad leaf, not eating, just poking. "A few thousand?" Jeremy's jaw tenses, his hand tightening around his knife. That was blown way out of proportion. I made a small mistake. Amelia was just looking for someone to pin it on. "I guess being late most days and missing deadlines is small now," I say, coolly taking a sip from my glass. Linda chimes in, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Well, accidents happen, right? But Zoe dear, you must be careful, clumsy can sometimes run in the family." Zoe gives a tight-lipped smile, her eyes still fixed on her unperturbed plate. "I believe everyone has a bad day now and then. Right, Jeremy?" Jeremy shoots a glance at Zoe, then back at me. He's desperate to change the subject. Let's not dwell on the past. I'm focusing on the future. I lean back in my chair. Sounds grand, hopefully, this time the future doesn't have a repeat ending. As the uncomfortable silence settles, Linda clears her throat, a signal for a subject change. "So, any plans after today, dear? Once you pack up?" I glance around the table, my resolve firm. First good night's sleep in months, I reckon. Zoe, finally putting down her fork, looks up. There's a flash of something, pity maybe, or curiosity. Sounds nice, actually. Jeremy, eager for an ally, turns to Zoe. "Babe, tell Amelia about the job you were telling me about." Zoe nods, a little spark of enthusiasm in her voice. "Oh, it's nothing much, just an opening in the admin department. Might be something for you to look at?" I look at her, really look, and there's something genuine there. I'm surprised. "Thanks, Zoe. Might just take a look at that." The meal continues, the earlier sparks of tension drowned out by mundane chatter. The clinking of cutlery against the plates fills the room as Linda keeps eyeing me like a hawk, waiting to swoop down with another snarky comment. "So tell me," she says, leaning back in her chair with a smirk, "still living out of that tiny apartment?" I push the salad around my plate, barely suppressing a smile. "Actually, Linda, I'll be moving soon. Got a little place closer to work now. It's mine." Jeremy chokes on his drink, coughing into his napkin while his mom's eyebrows shoot up. "You? A house? Where'd you get that sort of cash?" he sputters. "Well, if you'd asked me anything about my life in the past year," I say, cutting into my steak, "you'd know about the money Grandma left me. All 700K of it." His greedy eyes widen, and I can almost see the dollar signs flashing in them. "Wait, that's half mine," Jeremy blurts, his fork clattering onto the plate. His mother chimes in like clockwork. Absolutely, Jeremy. Married means shared assets. But I lean back in my chair and can't help but let out a laugh. Funny how you'd forget the prenup you shoved in my face. What's mine is mine, and what's yours is yours, wasn't it? Zoe, sitting next to Jeremy with a plate of untouched food, looks at him with a mix of shock and, is that disgust? Poor thing probably didn't sign up for this soap opera. Jeremy's face turns tomato red. That's before I knew you were coming into money, he shouts. I take another bite, savoring not just the meal, but the moment. I guess that's just tough luck, I say, giving him a wink. Zoe's eyes dart between us, clearly regretting her pick for the night, maybe for more than just tonight. And Jeremy, well, he's in full tantrum mode now, his napkin thrown down with a dramatic flourish. You know what, this is crap. You can't just. I cut him off, oh, but I can, and it seems like I just did. Dinner goes on, and with every petty jab they throw, I parry with the ease of someone with nothing to lose. Because, in this tacky dining room, with its gaudy chandelier and suffocating small talk, I've never felt freer. After all, there's no place like my own new home, however small and on the other side of town it may be. The sharp scent of roasted chicken mingled with the tang of tension in the air. The dining room felt smaller with every word Linda spat out. And tomorrow? Linda's cheeks flushed the same shade as the wine in her glass. I'm calling Mark. You'll be out of a job before you can say unemployment. Everyone at the table could hear the scrape of knife against the plate as Jeremy cut into his chicken, a little too forcefully. The sound rang out like an alarm, but I couldn't help it, I started laughing. It bubbled out, uncontrollable, a response so absurd against the backdrop of Linda's scowl. What's so funny? Linda practically hissed, her fork hovering midair. Jeremy's eyes were wide, like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar. The room went still, ready for the drama to explode. Straightening up, I wiped the corner of my eye, still chuckling. You too, I said, shaking my head. You don't know the half of it. Their gazes were like hooks, waiting for the punchline. 4 months ago, I landed a new job. Head of a department, big trading company, paychecks double what I used to make. Silence slammed into the room like a wave. Linda's fork dropped with a clatter, but it was Jeremy's face I savored. The mix of horror and envy was almost delicious. No, Jeremy finally muttered, his voice a mix of disbelief and resentment. Yep. I popped the pea like bubblegum. And as for calling in favors, I don't need your connections anymore, Linda. Then, as if on cue, the doorbell rang. That'll be the movers, I said, shoving my chair back. The screech of its legs against the floor was a fitting soundtrack to Linda's dropped jaw. I sauntered to the door, heart pounding but free. Opening it, there they were, a couple of burly guys with Hank's Moving Company stitched on their caps. We're here for your stuff? One of them asked, more stating than questioning. Yep, everything that belongs to me, that I acquired even before I got involved with my hubby, I said, hitching a thumb toward the dining room where my soon-to-be ex-life was crumbling. The movers shrugged and shuffled by, heading straight for the dining room. Their heavy boots thudded on the hardwood, every step a nail in the coffin of this uncomfortable evening. Linda was standing now, her napkin forgotten on her plate. You can't do this, she said, but the bite was gone from her voice. Oh, but I am. There was a sense of joy saying that out loud, watching her struggle for words. Jeremy was hunched at the table, his face buried in his palms, the lines of his back tight like a strung bow. Come on, don't do this. Not the sofa. Remember our movie nights? His voice was a soft plea, a distant echo from a time that felt like a different life. I shook my head firmly. The sofa's mine, Jib bought it with my own cash and you know it. Turning to the movers, I pointed at the bulky behemoth of a couch. That thing needs to go first. Careful with it, it's pricier than it looks. Zoe sat frozen, her eyes wide like saucers. She looked like she wanted to melt into the woodwork. Linda was still shaking her head, her lips pressed into a thin line. "You're cleaning us out, girl. What are we supposed to sit on? The floor? Should have thought of that before Jeremy decided to play house with Miss Sunshine here." I didn't bother hiding the bitterness as I swept my hand towards Zoe. The movers were a symphony of grunts and commands, heaving up my furniture with practiced ease. The TV came off the wall with a pop, the dining table was dismantled with a clatter, and even the damn washing machine was unhooked with a series of clangs and splashes. Jeremy finally stood up, pushing away from the table. "You think you've won?" His voice wobbled with anger, his nostrils flaring. "Checkmate," I quipped, heading back towards the kitchen. Plates of uneaten food gazed up at me as I grabbed a bottle of soda, popping the cap and taking a swig. It wasn't champagne, but the fizz tasted like victory. The movers began hauling boxes, the heavy sound of cardboard thumping against the front door as they passed in and out. I walked back into the dining room, grabbing a few last personal items, a picture frame, a ceramic cat Jeremy always hated, and my favorite mug. All right, but the car too?" Jeremy stood up, his face flushed a deep red. "You can't be serious. How am I supposed to get to work?" I fished the car keys from my pocket, twirling them around my finger. "You should have read the fine print, baby. That car's in my name." I tossed the keys to one of the movers. "Park it outside my new place, will ya?" By the time we were done, the house was as bare as a skeleton, stripped clean. Linda sat on the hardwood floor, her back against the wall, while Jeremy stared through the gaping space where the TV once was. And before I turned to leave, with one last look at the shell of our shared past, I said, "You should thank me, really. It's not every day you get a fresh start, free from all the old junk." Linda was fuming, her hands clenched into fists that kept opening and closing. "You're nothing without this family," she spat out, every word a poison dart. Funny thing was, I felt lighter than I had in years. I looked at her, at Jeremy, at the life I was leaving behind. Jeremy watched me, eyes reddening, his chest heaving like he was running out of air. Greed, anger, regret, they were written all over him, and I knew, even as I turned my back on that chapter, I would never forget that look. Escaping the clamor of Jeremy's house, I breathed deep. The cool air was a slap to my skin, a wake-up call. I was free, but Jeremy wasn't going to let go without a fight. "You think you've won, huh?" Jeremy's voice came from behind the door. "You'll regret this. Mark my words. You'll end up just an old hag with a bunch of cats." I could hear the anger boiling in his veins, but I didn't care. Done was done, and I was out of there. I was nearly at my car when the front door burst open again. There was Jeremy, red-faced and pompous. "You know, I've got Zoe now. She's half your age and twice as hot." His barb was meant to wound, but it missed its mark. Because right then, Zoe herself appeared, flinging Jeremy's arm off her like it was a filthy rag. "Keep dreaming, she snapped. She didn't even glance my way as she stomped down the steps, a fury in her heels. She was done playing the pretty little girlfriend prop. Jeremy stumbled after her like a man who'd just been kicked in the gut. "Zoe, babe, don't be like that. Come on." But Zoe spun around, and the look she shot him would have curdled milk. "Like what, Jeremy?" "Like someone who just saw the light. You're a jerk, and your mama? She's a dictator in a floral apron. I ain't marrying into this circus." The color drained from Jeremy's face, quicker than a leak in a balloon. He spluttered, "No comebacks, no charm. This is it, Jeremy. We are done." Zoe's words were like nails in a coffin, precise and final. Jeremy's mother, Linda, had appeared in the doorway too, her face twisted like she'd swallowed something nasty. "Zoe, you can't leave my boy. We had plans for you," she hissed, probably thinking of wedding bells and grandkids. But Zoe wasn't having a bar of it. I said, "I'm done. Go find another puppet for your little show. She stormed off, her heels clicking like a ticking time bomb. There I was, leaning against my car, trying real hard not to let the grin split my face. Watching Jeremy and Linda shrink in the rearview mirror felt better than I'd imagined. Hey, and don't think you've gotten away with this. Jeremy was shouting, but his words were like rain against my car window, persistent but insignificant. I rolled down the window a sliver, just enough to let my voice carry. Actually, I think I just did. I gave him a look, one that said I knew I'd won, then rolled the window back up before he could spew another word. I hit the gas and didn't look back. In my rear view, Jeremy's figure got smaller, his rage drowned out by the growl of the engine. Ahead of me, the street stretched out, the night just beginning to shimmer with possibilities. Looking at the empty seat next to me, I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a twinge of something like triumph, sweet and raw. No regrets, no looking back, I mused. Tonight, the getaway was all the dinner I needed. When my phone buzzed that morning, the last name I expected to flash on the screen was Zoe's. Yeah, that's her, the doll whose sharp tongue and don't care attitude had sent Jeremy and his mother Linda home with their tails between their legs. My lips curled into a smug grin. I swiped at the screen. Hey, Zoe. Hey, it's me. Just thought I'd ring you up, you know. To say thanks. Her voice chirped through. For what? I leaned back on my kitchen counter, a little confused but curious. For yesterday. You were freaking badass, opening my eyes about Jeremy and Linda. That, I laughed. It was a cold laugh, no joy in it. Trust me, I didn't do anything. You saw them for what they are, all on your own. Yeah, well, I just wanted to say I appreciate it. So, thank you, she insisted. I could hear the genuine tone in her voice. No problem. Just watch your back, okay? We said our goodbyes and hung up. The phone felt heavy in my hand as I tapped it against my chin, pondering the weirdness of it all. I had just been thanked by the woman who was fooling around with my ex-husband for helping her dodge a bullet. Life sure was strange. I mulled over my conversation with Zoe while I threw together a sandwich. The heel of the bread, some old cheese, and that last, sorry slice of ham. I wasn't in the mood for anything fancy. I slumped down at my tiny kitchen table, taking a bite out of the uneven sandwich. I chewed slowly, the bread dry and sticking to the roof of my mouth. That could have been me, stuck in that cycle with Jeremy and Linda. But it wasn't. I had broken free. Later that day, I sat down with a pen and a notepad. I was old school like that. A thank you note. Never thought I'd write one of those to my ex's side chick, but here we were. I scribbled quickly, not fussing over the words, just letting them spill out raw and real. I told Zoe she was welcome, that she was better off now, even if it didn't seem like it yet. I told her to keep her head high and to never let some two-timing jerk and his manipulative mom tell her who she was. And I signed it simply, with no flares or niceties. The note was brief, to the point. It was enough. I sealed it in an old envelope I found in a drawer, grabbed my keys, and headed out. I dropped the letter in the mailbox. No need for face-to-face, the words said it all. Walking back to my apartment, I kicked at a stray pebble. Life had given me lemons, and I didn't make lemonade. I threw those lemons back, hard. And now, I was helping others do the same. I had made peace with my past, with Jeremy, and surprisingly, I had made peace with Zoe too. The world kept turning, bizarre as it was, but at least for today, it was turning in my favor. The lawyer had one of them smirks when he handed me the last paper. "It's all yours now," he said, loud enough for Jeremy to hear across the room. "Nice doing business with you," I said, rolling my eyes a bit as I took the paperwork. The ink felt fresh and symbolic, the full stop at the end of a long, dragged-out story. Jeremy didn't say nothing. He just stood there, looking like someone had taken the ground out from under him. Probably realizing his mom's plan had backfired. Linda, she had a face like thunder, her lips thin, like she'd been sucking on lemons. Can you believe this? After everything I did. Linda's voice trailed off into a sort of hiss. I didn't answer, just clutched my papers a bit tighter. As I walked out of the court building and into my little car, that old thing that survived the marriage far better than I did, I caught Linda's eye. She was staring at me from her big, shiny car, probably feeling her age and her mistakes. You got what you wanted, huh? Jeremy puffed out as he caught up with me. His hands were shoved deep into his pockets, shoulders hunched. I turned to him, the feeling being finally free making me bold. No, Jeremy, I got what I deserved. There's a difference. My phone beeped. A message from Stella, a friend who'd stuck by me like glue. Drinks tonight? I couldn't help but smile. Stella got it. Hell, yes, I texted back. As I slipped into the driver's seat, there was a quiet. Not the uneasy quiet like at Jeremy's place, but the kind that lets you hear yourself think. As the engine came to life with a familiar rattle, I felt something twist in my stomach. Excitement? Nerves? My new home felt different now. I stepped inside, the echo of my footsteps the only welcome, but it was enough. My eyes roamed over the place. It was a mess of boxes and furniture that had seen better days. But it was mine. I spent the next few hours moving stuff around, unpacking, and tossing what I didn't need. I made room, my room, a space that felt more like me by the minute. Next day, I drove to work. Work was the kind of busy that kept thoughts at bay and made the day fly by. At lunch, the girls were all ears. You okay? Jess, the office gossip, asked, her eyes all concern and curiosity. Better than okay, I answered with no shadow of a lie. The drive home was meditative, the road stretched like my future, uncertain, yeah, but mine all the same. That night, Stella and I hit the bar. It was loud and full, just like life should be. We tossed back drinks and threw our heads back with laughter that drew looks. To new beginnings, Stella said, holding up her glass. To tomorrow, I replied. And we drank to that. Tomorrow and the day after and all the days to follow. Because that's the thing about tomorrow, it's always on its way, and now, so was I, ready for whatever the hell it decided to bring. My name's Rachel, plain old Rachel, with a job that's about crunching numbers and making sure the balance sheets, well, balance. I've got my head in the budgets most days, but you better believe that doesn't keep me from hoping for a bit more than just debits and credits. For years back, I latched onto Michael's star. He's all ambition and no brakes, running his family's business like it's a race car he's pushing to the limit. This company, it's his mom Elizabeth's baby, she built it brick by brick, and it's like her third kid, after Michael and the dog. Since I come in the picture, I've been Michael's right hand. From the moment the pennies didn't add up till the minute they turned into dollars, I've had his back. He's a good guy, with a good head on his shoulders, always listening to what I've got to say about the company accounts. Liz, that's what I call Elizabeth when I'm not in her face, she's a tough one. She could peel paint with her stare if she wanted. Don't think she ever loved me, but she found a little patch of respect for me. She says as long as Michael's happy and the money's right, then she's alright. Now to the today bits. I pulled my chair closer to my desk and was digging into the books when Michael stormed in, all fire and fury like he'd just caught someone nicking his car. Crashing into my little world of numbers, he threw his jacket on the chair and declared war without so much as a hello. Rachel, we got a problem, a big one. His voice was like a thunderclap. What's up? I asked, without a flinch. Michael had a flair for the dramate. Those pesky auditors are on my back, he growled, thumbing through the sheaf of papers like they'd personally offended him. Tell them to take a number, I quipped. I wasn't about to let them or Michael ruin a perfectly good Thursday. He cracked a smile, though. Sure, and who'll face the music then, you? They're sniffing around Elizabeth's last deal like it's got a bad stench. I sighed. Then we'll give them roses to smell instead. Where's the fire? Point me at it. He relaxed a bit and flopped down across from me. I knew the score. Michael gets the heat, I find the way out. It was a dance we had gotten used to. I need you to look over everything, okay? Can you do that for me, Rachel? His eyes were asking politely, but his tone meant business. You got it, boss, I said, cracking my knuckles. I'll dive in and you'll have those auditors eating out of your hand. The door swung shut behind him, and I was alone again with the ghosts of numbers yet to be tamed. It didn't scare me. The numbers never did. It was only when they didn't add up that my stomach knotted, because those rare times spelled trouble. That was the gauntlet thrown, so I picked it up. The real figures from the deal sat snug on my hard drive, waiting for me. I just had to prove that Liz's deal was squeaky clean. For Michael, for the company, and, hell, for my own peace of mind. So I settled in, glasses perched on my nose, ready to wage war with spreadsheets and bank statements. It was going to be a long night, and the coffee pot was my only ally. Michael hired a new secretary, a bombshell really, and brains weren't her strong suit. Her desk routine was a mess. Her idea of filing was piling papers high enough to block out boredom or any real work. I couldn't deny she had a presence, though, like a walking, talking beauty advert. At Elizabeth's for dinner, it was a small gathering, just Michael, Elizabeth, and me. The clinking of cutlery mixed with the dull hum of the oven in the background as we sat down to eat. You could find someone more capable, I said, pushing a pea around with my fork. Michael gave me a look, his smile flat as weak old soda. Jealous, Rachel? Of Samantha's looks? His tone had a bite, a challenge. My face got hot fast, but not from shame. I was made of sterner stuff. It's about professionalism, Michael, not her assets. That's when Elizabeth cut in, her voice carrying weight as it always did. She's right, Michael. And respect your wife. That's non-negotiable. Elizabeth was old school, a steel magnolia, elegance with a core of iron. Michael shifted in his seat, uncomfortable but knowing better than to cross Elizabeth. I didn't mean any offense, Rachel. Samantha just draws in the clients with her charm. Charm? I scoffed. Is that what we're calling it these days? I took a bite of my food, tasting more of my annoyance than the herbs on the chicken. Then there was a knock at the door, a roll of thunder entering the dining room. It was Samantha, the secretary herself, decked out like she was gunning for a spot on a magazine cover instead of a family dinner. Sorry, I know I'm unexpected. Samantha started, all eyelashes and lipstick. But Michael, you left your phone at the office. She handed it to him, her fingers brushing his like she was delivering a secret promise. Michael took his phone with a muttered thanks, his eyes darting between me and Elizabeth. Samantha, apparently satisfied with the disruption she caused, swayed out of the room like the queen of disarray she was, leaving a trail of expensive perfume and confusion in her wake. After the door closed behind her, Elizabeth's voice sliced through the silence. That girl might as well be trouble wrapped in designer threads. I could only nod, my jaw tight enough to press diamonds from coal. The rest of the dinner passed in a strange calm before the storm. Michael tried to steer the conversation to safer waters, but it was like putting a band-aid on a crack in a dam. Months pass, and I can feel the heat in the office rising, like the temperature is set a few notches too high. But it's not the thermostat, it's everything else. The way Samantha struts in every morning, you'd think she owned the place. Today, it's some tight dress that screams cocktail hour, not 9 to 5. I can't help myself. Attire for the office, not the opera, Samantha. I grumble as she breezes by my desk. She halts, pivots on a heel, and smirks. Well, not everyone has to hide their figure, Rachel. Her words hit like a punch to the gut. She knows she's got the kind of curves that cause a ruckus, And she doesn't mind flaunting them, especially not around Michael. I turn back to my screen, hoping my cheeks aren't too red. I feel the eyes on me, the whispers that burrow under my skin like ticks. They're eating this drama up, bit by juicy bit. I catch a glimpse of Samantha leaning over Michael's desk, laughing a bit too loud at something undoubtedly not funny. Michael's eating it up, the idiot. There's a smirk on his face that makes my fingers itch to wipe it right off. I hear them making plans to leave together, their voices a mix of excitement and hushed tones. The whispers around me crescendo. The shared rides home we used to enjoy, chatting about nonsense or sometimes in comfortable silence, they're history now. It's all Samantha, all the time. Lunchtime becomes a solo act. I grab my sandwich and sit at the corner table, pretending not to notice the gap that's grown since Samantha arrived. It feels like I'm sitting in no man's land, while everyone else is at the cool table. Later, I confront Michael in the break room. He's sipping a coffee, looking relaxed. Too relaxed. So, this thing with Samantha, what's that about? I ask, trying to sound casual. Oh, come on, Rachel. It's nothing. We're just colleagues, Michael says, with a shrug that's supposed to be convincing. Friends don't look at each other like that, Michael. I insist, crossing my arms. You're not fooling anyone. There are whispers, Michael. He laughs, a harsh sound that scrapes against my patience. Oh, please. There's always office gossip. Grow a thicker skin. I leave the break room, leaving Michael with his so-called advice and his arrogance. The words bounce around my head, grow a thicker skin. Right. Because that solves everything. One day I went into Michael's office to get the documents. What I saw felt like a jab to the chest. There they were. Michael and Samantha hugging each other, his arm tied around her waist like she's some sort of prize he won. Michael stammers, looking like he's just seen a ghost. Meanwhile, Samantha wears this smug grin like she's got one over on me. Really, Michael? I said, my voice cut through the silence like a knife. This is what's been going on. Michael's face was dripping with sweat, his shirt collar soaked. It's not what it looks like, he says, his voice all shaky like he's trying to convince himself more than me. Samantha, still standing there with that irritating smile, says, calm down, it's just a hug. Just a hug? I snapped back. And I suppose you just happened to fall into his arms, right? Michael tried to butt in, his hands up as if trying to stop a bullet. Listen, we were just... I turned on my heel, not wanting to show them how much it hurt. I could hear him behind me, his footsteps on the expensive office carpet. Wait, let's talk about this. Please. I only stopped when I reached my office, turned the lock with a click that sounded like finality. I leaned against the door, the solid wood against my back feeling like the only steady thing in that moment. I didn't want the whole place listening in on the drama. I kept my voice even, almost cool. Michael, what do you want from me? To stand here and take this? Listen, he began, whispering through the crack where the door met the frame. It's a misunderstanding, that's all. I scoffed at that weak excuse. Misunderstanding? I said, louder now. I know what I saw. I could see his shadow moving back and forth under the door. He was pacing, a dead man walking. I could hear him muttering, trying to string together the right words as if they'd work like some magic spell. I sat at my desk, cold metal against my fingers while I thought about all the lies, all the late nights I'd been a fool to believe were for work. A knot tightened in my gut. Everything was clear now. I wasn't going to stick around to be played for a fool. After a while, the pacing stopped, and the shadow under my door disappeared. I wasn't going to be interrupted anymore. I didn't need an explanation, none would be good enough, and I sure didn't need the rumor mill of the office spinning tales about my personal life. The rest of the day was just a blur. Papers, phone calls, the clack of keyboards, it all mixed together in a meaningless cacophony. The real noise was in my head, the voice telling me I'd been blind. I remember the evening air was still when Michael stumbled through the door. His steps were uneven, loud in the timid quiet of the living room. "Rachel," he started, his voice had a jittery pitch, like the buzzing of a faulty light. "Samantha's pregnant," he blurted out. I felt my heart splinter, but my face didn't flinch. "So, that's it then?" I asked, my voice barren of the warmth it used to carry for him. "Yeah, I guess it is," Michael replied, rubbing the back of his neck like he always did when cornered. His eyes didn't meet mine. "Look, Rachel, I'm done. You're just not exciting anymore. I want a divorce." My throat was dry, felt like it was stuffed with cotton. "Fine," I said, the word cutting the air like a knife. Silence stretched between us, aching and dense. He shuffled his feet, clearly wanting to escape. "So, that's it, you're just going to let me go?" Michael's voice had a scornful edge, but underneath it was surprise, maybe even disappointment. "That's it," I replied flatly, every word laced with the ice that had settled in my chest. "All right, then." He turned and walked out, taking no more than a suitcase and leaving a whirlwind of broken vows behind. I stood motionless, the ghost of our love story wilting in the gathering dusk. Then I reached for the phone, my hand steady as I dialed Elizabeth's number. "It's Rachel. I need help." We talked about a lot of things, and when she hung up, I know what I needed to do next. The silence felt different now. It was the quiet of a starting line, the hush before the storm. With newfound purpose, I began to gather Michael's things, stuffing them into bags with a ferocity that was foreign yet fitting. Every piece of fabric was a testament to a lie I'd lived, an illusion I'd cherished. Not anymore. He'd called me dull, said I wasn't exciting. But as I looked around at the life I was about to dismantle, a flicker of something feral twisted in my gut. I wasn't dull, never had been. I was just misplaced. Now, there I was, bags packed with the remnants of a defunct marriage, standing in the dimming light of my living room. And you know what? There was something exciting about the emptiness, something thrilling about the vast unknown stretching out before me. The morning was crack of dawn early, and the air in the office was still. I pushed open the door to the place I'd spent countless hours crunching numbers and biting my tongue. Not today. Today, the papers tucked under my arm felt like the heaviest weights, yet they made my steps lighter. I found Samantha lounging behind her desk, nails clicking away on her phone like some pampered cat sharpening its claws. "Took you long enough?" She smirked without looking up. "Thought I'd have to send out a search party or a pink slip." Ignoring her, I walked straight into Michael's office, the door flung wide open. He was there, looking like the king of jack-all, feet kicked up on the desk that he barely deserved to sit behind. "Rachel, what do you want?" Michael barked, scrambling to sit upright. I slapped the papers on his desk. "Your world's about to turn to crap, Michael," I said, keeping my voice steady. He picked up the stack with a shaky hand. "What is this?" His voice had that high-pitched squeak, one I recognized when he was worried. "Your ticket out. Have a nice read," I said coolly. Samantha had stalked in, the click of her heels an annoying reminder of her presence. "What's she on about now, Michael?" she sneered, leaning over his shoulder. "Don't tell me you still haven't fired her?" Michael leafed through the files, his face draining of color. "These are fake," he managed, but his voice had lost its bluster. "It's not fake, Michael," I shot back. "Turns out your darling Samantha is dirty. Check out the expense reports. She's been skimming cash, writing it off as your representation expenses. Who knew office supplies could be so lavish?" "This is slander." Samantha's voice was high enough to shatter glass. And that's when Elizabeth walked in, her steps silent but her presence filling the room like a storm cloud. "Enough," she intoned, and her single word clipped through our argument like a scythe. Michael turned to her, whining, "Mother, she's lying. Tell her, Samantha." Elizabeth didn't flinch. You're dismissed, Michael. Her voice was final, the kind that slammed doors shut and ended discussions. Michael sunk into his chair, his face ashen. Mum, please. I'm your son. You can't. I can and I have. Elizabeth stood, unwavering. It was like the whole room held its breath, even Samantha. And then she laughed. It was a sound that could curdle milk. Guess the show's over, Michael. She taunted, tossing the papers on his desk like they were trash. Time to let you in on a secret, lover boy. I'm not pregnant. And me, love you? Police. Michael looked like he'd been slapped with a wet fish. You said? You promised. Yeah, well, that was before your mommy here fired you. Samantha sneered. Face it, you were just a stepping stone, Michael. And now, you're more like a pebble. That's enough, Samantha. I cut in, sick of her voice. Her eyes fixed on me, and the sarcasm thickened. Oh, look at Rachel, the savior. You think you're special? Her laugh was cruel. You're as pathetic as he is. Only Rachel could love a loser like Michael. The room was thick with betrayal, shock, and a hint of victory, mine. Funny how the tables turned. Only today, the last laugh was on me. Samantha tried to leave, only to was stopped by Elizabeth. Return the money, she demanded in a tone that froze my blood in my veins. Listen, Elizabeth, I swear I'll pay it back. Samantha stuttered, her back against the wall. Her hands trembled. I can get a loan or something. Loan or something, huh? Elizabeth snorted, her eyes icy slits. Damn right you will. Or else you'll find out just how bad things can get. Okay, I get it. I messed up big time. Samantha stammered, looking everywhere but into Elizabeth's cold stare. Michael shifted in his armchair, the creak of the leather breaking the harsh silence. He ran his hand through his hair and let out a ragged sigh. Mom, Sam, I don't want you to. Shut it, Michael. I snapped from across the room. It was hard to watch him, a grown man, so close to weeping over his own mess. You've done enough talking. Elizabeth turned on her heel, pointing a stern finger at Michael. You're as much to blame. Giving her access to the funds like it's play money. I trusted her. Michael's voice cracked. Trust? Elizabeth laughed, short and scornful. Trust is earned, not handed out like candy, you fool. I didn't want to steal, but I just got in too deep. Samantha choked out, her eyes darting nervously. I stayed quiet, leaning against the doorframe with crossed arms. Elizabeth didn't need backup to handle this, she was storm enough all on her own. Samantha slumped, defeated. I'll figure it out. I just need time. Time is the one thing you don't have, girlie, Elizabeth snapped. I want that money back, and I want it yesterday. I'll get it. Somehow. Samantha's voice waned to a feeble whisper. Elizabeth's look softened just a hair. You better. Because if you think this is bad, jail will eat you alive. As Samantha scurried out, a harried mess of guilt and fear, Michael sank back into his chair, face buried in his hands. Elizabeth turned her back on him, she had no comfort to give. The room fell silent after the storm, heavy with the weight of consequences. Michael's mumbling apologies hung limp in the air, as ignored as distant thunder. We all knew the size of the hole we were in. It was time to start digging ourselves out. The paperwork was a nightmare, a jungle of legalese and signatures that felt like they'd never end. Somewhere between signing away my marriage and dissolving my professional ties, Elizabeth dropped the bombshell. Stay, Rachel. Help run this company. She said it so matter-of-factly you'd think she was asking me to pass the salt. I looked at her, incredulous. Are you serious? I replied, my tone edged with raw surprise. You know what went down here. You saw the wreckage. She leaned back in her chair, eyes unreadable as always. I know, she admitted, but we could turn it around. You got guts and know-how. I can handle the board. Think about it. I wanted to laugh. Wanted to because the idea was ludicrous, yet there I was, actually mulling it over. Turning the place around wasn't a one-woman job, and hell, I knew the ins and outs of this godforsaken place better than anyone. I locked eyes with Elizabeth, long enough to let the gravity of the situation sink in. "You can't be serious," I finally said, but my voice lacked conviction. The truth was, something in me thrived on challenges, on proving people wrong. As a heart attack, she fired back, no hint of jest lurking in her gaze. "Join me. What else you gonna do? Go back to Michael, who's groveling at your feet?" I scoffed, shaking my head. No way in hell I'm going back to that. Visions of Michael's face, all puppy dog eyes and wilted pride, came to mind. He can wait till hell freezes over for all I care. Elizabeth smirked. "That's my girl." It wasn't a term of endearment by any means. In this jungle, it was the call of one lioness to another, acknowledging the coming hunt. So I stayed. Together, we rolled up our sleeves and clawed through the mess. Day in and day out, we navigated through the crapstorm, her iron will and my relentless drive combining into a force to be reckoned with. And Michael? He became a ghost, drifting on the edges of my new life. Sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of him, lurking, a shadow of man who'd lost his gambit. Part of me might have felt a sliver of sympathy, but I had a company to resurrect. Elizabeth and I had one last showdown with the board. The old boys didn't know what hit 'em. We walked into that room, reports in hand, sharp as knives. I remember the head of the board, a slippery named Jenkins, trying to undermine us with some comment. "You ladies sure you want to keep playing in the big leagues?" He chuckled, a chorus of wheezing laughs echoing him. Elizabeth shot him a look that could curdle milk. "Playing? Jenkins, we rewrote the damn rulebook. Now, sit down, shut up, and watch how it's done." We laid out our strategy, outlined our successes to date, and projected the future with such precision even Jenkins couldn't find a foothold for his snide remarks. Walking out of there, I couldn't help but feel a wildfire of triumph roaring through my veins. We'd conquered, and the climb was brutal, but damn, the view from the top was something else. As for redemption? That's a long road, best walked alone. Michael would have to find his own way because as the sun set on the old company and rose on the new, I'd found mine, right alongside an ally no one, including myself, would have ever expected. Call me Diana. When I was 9, life hit the fan. Now, I'm not using fancy words here, just telling it straight. It was me, my little sister Lizzie who was 2, Mom, and the man I'd called Dad up until that world-flipping day. See, Dad had this DNA test done, out of nowhere, really, and boom, our family wasn't a family in the way we thought. Dad walked in, papers in hand, face all kinds of twisted up with, I dunno, anger, shock, sadness. Mom first went all pale, eyes wide, then she tried to shrug it off, but who was she kidding? When she saw Dad wasn't buying her act, she crumbled like a house of cards, tears and all, spilling the beans about not knowing who my real dad was. And about still being in the picture with Lizzie's dad. That's how the dominoes fell. Dad split from Mom, but he didn't slam the door on us. He wasn't heartless. Kept sending money our way because, in his heart, he still saw us as his kids, I guess. Love's weird like that. Mom didn't waste any time though, married Lizzie's dad, George, quick as you like. Lizzie became the apple of his eye the second the ink dried on their marriage certificate, and he made it official by adopting her and cutting me out like last night's pizza. For me, it was like I became a ghost in my own home, invisible. Our house, huh? It was less of a home and more of a crash pad for me. Mom was all about her new life, with stepdad and Lizzie. They were like the picture-perfect 3, and there was me, just sort of, there. Don't get your stuff on the couch, stepdad would bark, not even looking up from his game on TV. But where am I supposed to, I'd start. Figure it out, not my problem, he'd cut me off without missing a beat. Mom would be in the kitchen, cooing over Lizzie or giggling with stepdad, acting like my voice was lost in some other dimension. Me and Lizzie? Well, we were on different planets. I tried to be the good big sister, but she was being raised like she was an only child, princess costumes, bedtime stories, all smiles. Me, I was lucky if I got a goodnight hollered in my general direction. The dinner table was like a minefield. I'd sit quiet, try to make myself smaller, while they chatted about their days, about everything and nothing. I'd just pick up my food, not if someone accidentally made eye contact. "You gonna eat that?" Stepdad would grunt, eyeing my chicken like he hadn't been fed in weeks. "Nah, you can have it," I'd mumble, sliding my plate over. "Hey, watch it. You're making a mess," he'd growl as a pea rolled off the table. Mom was no better. If I tried to talk to her about school or friends, she'd give me that nod-smile combo that adults do when they're not listening. Sure, honey," she'd say without missing a beat in her phone scroll. The bell rang, cutting through the chatter of the hallway, signaling the end of the day. I gripped my backpack tighter, shuffling out with the rest, everyone pushing to be first to freedom. That's when I saw him, leaned up against the old metal fencing by the school gates, my dad. "Dad?" I said, peering close as if my eyes were playing tricks. "Diana," he grunted, a curt nod in place of a smile. I stopped a few feet away, wary. "What are you doing here?" "Got something to tell you." He ran a rough hand through his hair, which seemed unrulier than I remembered. "Can we go somewhere? Talk?" Glancing around, wondering if any of my friends were witnessing this reunion, I nodded towards my usual hangout. "There's a diner around the corner." The walk was silent, the clunk of his boots on pavement outpacing any attempt at small talk. The diner wasn't much, but it was a slice of familiarity compared to the man walking beside me. Once seated in a booth with peeling vinyl and a wobbly table, the waitress came over, eyeing Dad somehow suspiciously and me with concern. "The usual, Diana?" she asked, her voice a welcome sound. I nodded. "Yeah, and whatever he'll have." Dad grunted again, not even picking up the menu. "Coffee, black." She nodded and hurried off. I drummed my fingers on the table, buying time. Eventually, I burst out. "You can't just show up like this." He didn't flinch. "Didn't plan on it. Thought you oughta know, though. I can't have kids, Diana." The words hung there like a heavy smoke. I stopped drumming my fingers. So, he shifted uncomfortably. "Thought you might want to know. Be with your old man now that I know for sure you're the only one I'll have." My heart was doing strange flips. "Just like that? I drop everything and come with you?" "It's not nothing, Diana," he said, voice rising a touch. Figured it meant something. To you, especially. Mom and George flashed in my mind, along with the mound of unwashed laundry and the echoing silence every time I walked in the door. I sighed. "You got room for one more at your place?" "You bet," he said, shoulders relaxing. "I got space." "And what would I do? Just hang out while you work?" The practical side of me needed details. He stirred his coffee, the spoon clinking against the ceramic. "You go to school. I work. We'll figure the rest out." School. That was something I planned to finish, no matter what. Fine. But I'm finishing high school. No derailing that. He gave a small nod as if it was decided, there and then. Fine. I chewed my lip. Term was ending in a couple of months. It wouldn't be too bad, I convinced myself. I'd make new friends, or keep in touch with the old, somehow. Mom and George, well, they had been more like roommates than family lately. Might not even notice I'm gone till rent's due. "Okay," I said, a strange lightness taking over. "Okay, let's do this. But Dad, this can't be one of those fly-by-night schemes." "I'm serious." He met my eyes, and for a second I saw something that might have passed for conviction. "I'm serious too, kiddo. Time to make things right." We left the diner with a plan forming. I was scared, but the idea of starting over, with him, it felt like a real chance. As we walked back to the school to collect the rest of my things, I figured this might just be the new beginning I'd been craving. Dad and I live in a new city now. It's different, cold sometimes, and loud, but it's home. Dad started his own business, something to do with tech and gadgets. It was just a bunch of computers at first, but it really picked up. People talk about him now, like he's someone. I guess he is. I go to this local school. It's alright, I guess. Not much to say about it except I'm there to get grades, and I'm doing good, real good. Got to, right? Dad's setting the bar up high with his success and all. I gotta keep up, make him proud. That's the goal. And me? Dentistry's where it's at for me. Can't explain it, really. Just something about fixing people up, giving them a smile to be proud of. Sounds good, doesn't it? Dad's all for it. When I first told him, I thought he'd be like, dentistry, really? But no, he was all. If that's what you want, kiddo, then go for it. That's Dad for you, supportive as ever. My mom and George? They're like a TV show I used to watch, but forgot how it goes. It's just static now, and I don't remember much about them. Doesn't matter, though. We've got our own thing going on here. Another test aced? How do you do it? Dad's voice makes me jump as he comes into my room. His eyes are all tired from work, but he's smiling. Study, isn't it? Just hit the books and the answers stick, I say, shrugging like it's no big deal. Dad chuckles, the lines by his eyes crinkling up. You got your old man's brains, that's for sure. I roll my eyes. Yeah, just means I'll have to pick a fancy college for dentistry. They don't let any dummy in. Hey, you pick the college, I'll figure out the rest. He pats my head and then turns serious. Don't you worry about that. The thing is, I don't worry. Not about this. Dad's good for his word, always has been. There's this cool thing I've been doing, volunteering at a local dentist's office. Sounds boring, but trust me, it's not. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm there, watching, learning, sometimes handing them tools like I know what I'm doing. It feels right, like I belong. I don't go out much, not a party person. I've got Emma and Zach at school, and that's plenty. Emma's all about basketball, while Zach's into his music. They're cool, even if we don't hang out much outside of school. So, when you gonna invite us over? Emma bumps my shoulder as we're walking out of class. I wanna see if your dad's place looks as techy as you say. I shrug. Dunno, we're pretty busy most of the time. But yeah, maybe. Zach's grinning, his headphones around his neck. Busy studying teeth, huh? If you ever need a guinea pig. He taps his front tooth. No way, I snort. I am not starting with your mouth, Zach. Days blend together, school and dentistry. It's like a rhythm, home, school, teeth stuff. But it's nice, predictable. I like it. I like knowing where I stand, and where I'm headed. It's a good life. Dad and we're doing okay here. Business, school, future dentist stuff, it's all pieces of this new life. And I'm thinking, as I fall asleep with my dentistry book spread out around me, I'm really looking forward to what comes next. I'm 32 now. Year by year, the image of my dad in his prime fades a bit more, the edges blur like a photograph left too long in the sun. He's been gone for a few years, taken by a sickness that chewed him up from the inside. Damn, it made me mad. Fists clenched, teeth gritted, kind of mad. You see, I've been around medicine my whole life, with all this knowledge and not a penny spared on treatment, but still, the guy couldn't beat the odds. Life's a real piece of work, huh? It kicks you down and expects you to get up and say, thank you. But I've always been a fighter. Dad used to say that, told me I got it from him. So after he passed, I let the pain fuel me. Ran my own race, and now, here I am, doctor at a dental clinic with my name on the door. Inheriting everything Dad owned did make things smoother. I won't lie, money talks in this world, and it's a lot louder when you're trying to keep a business afloat. I kicked ass to get to where I'm at, and Dad's inheritance just padded the fall a bit when things got rough. My clinic's the talk of town. People come in with all sorts of issues, a chipped tooth here, a cavity there. I see it all, fix what I can. But it's not just smiles I mend, oh no. People tell you things when they're sitting in that chair, looking up at the ceiling, trying not to think about the drill in their mouth. They talk about life, the raw, unpolished realness of it. I like that, makes every day different. Like this one guy, let's call him Joe. Burly fellow with tattoos all the way up his arms and a frown that looked permanent. Came in for a root canal, tough as nails, or so he thought. Alright, Joe. Open wide and let's take a look at the troublemaker, I'd say. My damn tooth's been killing me, he grunted, mouth already full of dental equipment. Can't chew my steak proper. Can't have that, I said, matching his straightforwardness. Let me fix you up right quick. By the end of the appointment, after some drilling and a whole lot of tough guy grunts, he was singing a different tune. Doc, you're a miracle worker, Joe mumbled through the gauze in his mouth. Go easy on the steaks for a while, yeah? I told him, handing him a mirror to check out my handiwork. A job well done if I may say so myself. That's the drill, my days in a nutshell. But it's not just teeth, it's the people behind them that keep the job interesting. So yeah, life goes on. I miss Dad every damn day, but I reckon he'd be proud. Proud that his little girl didn't just crumble. I look forward and push on. That's what you have to do. No use dwelling on the what-ifs and the whys. You deal with what's in front of you, one day, one tooth, one heartache at a time. The sun was setting when I heard the knock. I wasn't expecting anyone, let alone Mom and Lizzie. Their sudden appearance felt like a gust of wind before a storm. You got a nice place here, said Lizzie, as she pushed past me like she owned the place. Her eyes were hungry, taking in every detail of my living room. Hi, honey, Mom said, less bold but with a look that told me she had something on her mind. We were just in the neighborhood. I doubted that. They lived in another city. What brings you here? I asked, even though I had a nagging suspicion. We need to talk, Diana. Lizzie cut in, plopping down on my sofa with no invitation. I'm planning to go to college. I raised an eyebrow. That's good to hear, Lizzie. But why do I feel like there's a but coming up? She didn't hesitate. But I need money, sis. I want to get into college, do something with my life. That struck a chord. I used to be in those shoes, staring up a mountain that felt impossible to climb. Look, I want to help, I said. But money isn't something you should take lightly. Mom chimed in. Your sister's trying to do something with her life. You could make it easier for her. I felt the walls closing in. This felt wrong, just handing over cash without knowing if it would actually go to pay for college. But then again, this was family. How much do you need? I asked, already regretting the question. Lizzie's grimace turned into a grin. Not much. 25 grand should cover the first couple years. I nearly choked. 25,000? That's a lot of money, Lizzie. Don't act like it's a big deal for you. She snapped back. You got it. That stung. Just because I had made something of myself didn't mean I had money to throw around. But looking at Lizzie, I saw the shadows of my own past. Uncertain. Scared. I sighed. I'll give you the money, but on one condition. I send it directly to the college when you enroll. Lizzie squirmed. I haven't picked a place yet. Just need the money, I'll handle the rest. Her eyes dodging mine. The air felt heavy, like right before a storm breaks. You don't trust me? Her voice rose. It's not about trust, I countered, but even as I said it, I knew it was. I just want to make sure it's used right, Lizzie. There was a cold silence until Mom chimed in, tired of the back and forth. we're not here to scam you. I took a breath, feeling cornered. Okay. I went to my desk, logged into my account, and did the transfer. There, $25,000. For school. Lizzie's eyes lit up with a mix of victory and guilt. Thanks, I won't forget this. But it was Mom's quick, greedy smile that stayed with me long after they left. I sat there, feeling a blend of worry and disappointment, hoping I hadn't just made a huge mistake. For months, I'd been on the phone with Mom and my sister back in our hometown. It felt good to help them out, sending a few $100 when I could. But when October rolled in, something in my gut told me to check up on Sis and her college situation. One afternoon, I called her, my voice casual as I asked about her classes. But like a slippery fish, she wriggled out of the topic, and before I could press on, she hung up. I frowned at my phone, a suspicion gnawing at my mind. Next thing, I'm stalking her social media like some sort of detective. There she was, all smiles, decked out in threads that screamed money. But not a single selfie in her college gear, nothing. Enough was enough. I hit dial on Kara's number, my old buddy from the block. Kara, it's me, Diana. What's the deal with my sister? How is she doing in college? Her voice came out flat. Your sis? College? Girl, she's strutting around here like she's in some sort of fashion show. You should see the bags they carry. No books, all bling. It hit me like a ton of bricks, played for a fool. I was burning with the need to confront them, to yell until I was hoarse. I'd been dialing Lizzie all day, hitting redial more times than I cared to count. The same with Mom. Neither bothered to pick up. Each ignored call stacked bricks in the wall they were building between us. When I went online, hunting for a trace of them, my messages bounced back like I was some stranger now. I was locked out and it stung like hell. Hurt simmered and bubbled over into a rage that iced my veins. They'd conned me. The doorbell rang like a warning siren that I didn't want to heed. There on my doorstep, my mother and sister stood, their appearances a bit too polished for a casual visit. I could feel the weight of their expectations before a word even slipped past their lips. Without an invite, they barged in as if it was their right. They settled on my couch and began to look at my living room. Need money for college, Lizzie blurted out, not 2 minutes into the so-called visit. Her eyes didn't meet mine, and why would they? Lies have a hard time looking you in the eye. Yeah, that's rich, considering, I said, crossing my arms over my chest. My mother shifted uncomfortably. Diana, you don't understand. What? That you're both liars? I cut her off. My voice was colder than I anticipated. It was odd, but liberating. You got no right to talk to us like that, Diana. Lizzie piped up, her voice getting sharp. We're family. That card's expired, I shot back. Listen here. I didn't let her finish. I did. For a long time, I listened and gave and got nothing but a lie. We're your blood, and you owe us that much, my sister said, her voice hitching up a notch. I couldn't help but laugh then. Not because it was funny, but because the level of their delusion was staggering. You think I owe you for spending my money on everything but what you claimed? For lying? For treating me like an ATM? I fixed them with a look that felt as if it could peel the paint from the walls. There was silence for a moment, and then my mother's face twisted into a scowl. Ungrateful brat. After everything we've done for you. Done to me, you mean? I corrected. My sister stood up. We don't need this. If you're going to be a bastard about helping family. Well, if the shoe fits. I interrupted her and then pointed at the door. Leave. I'm done being your free ride. They were on their feet now, faces red, not with shame, but with anger. You'll regret this, my mother hissed. I already regret plenty, but cutting you off ain't on that list. I walked to the door, holding it open. Get out. As they stomped past me, their parting words were threats about making me pay in ways money couldn't cover. Once they left, the silence in the apartment was heavy, but it was mine and mine alone. I leaned against the closed door after they were gone and exhaled a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. It was done. It should have felt like a victory, but wars with family tend to leave you counting losses more than wins. Life has a funny way of showing you who really cares. Here I am, sitting on the rough patch of grass by his grave, my dad's grave. Well, he wasn't my biological dad, but that never mattered. He treated me like I was his own. Gave me support, taught me right from wrong, showed me kindness. Not like my mother or my sister. I stopped picking up their calls, blocked their numbers. Cut them off, just like that. Now, here I sit with only the sound of the wind for company. I talk to him, to my dad, telling him about my day, about the tough root canal or the kid who wouldn't stop squirming in the chair. It feels right, being here with him. Peaceful. Hey, Diana. It's Jim from the grave next over. Poor guy, lost his wife last year. He's a regular here, like me. You're talking to your dad again, huh? Yeah, I say. You know how it is. Jim nods. Sure do. Gotta keep the connection somehow. How's work going? Same old, same old. Teeth are teeth, Jim. They don't change much. Jim chuckles. Yeah, I guess teeth are more reliable than people, huh? You got that right, I smirk. I've always liked Jim. Has a way of saying what he means without wrapping it in cotton. I stand up, brush the grass off my jeans, and take one last look at the headstone. See you tomorrow, Dad, I say softly, though he can't hear me. The door of the car closes with a satisfying thud. I start the engine and roll out of the cemetery. The road stretches out ahead of me, clear and open. Just like my future, just like my life now. No more chains pulling me back, no more feeling like a human ATM. My life is mine again, I whisper to the rearview mirror. Tucking a stray hair behind my ear, I pull into the traffic. My phone's silent these days, but I like it that way. No surprise calls begging for cash, no manipulative messages. Just the occasional text from a friend or a reminder for an appointment. When I get home, I crash on the couch. No yelling, no lies, no fake teary apologies or promises. Maybe I'll get a dog, a big one with soft ears. Someone who's glad to see me for me, not for what's in my wallet. Yeah, that sounds nice. Life has a way of throwing you curveballs, doesn't it? Here I am, Joan, with my life's chapters so neatly organized like my accounting books, and just like that, everything's tipped out of balance. I work with numbers because they make sense to me, add and subtract, debit and credit, nothing unexpected. But no amount of reconciliation prepares you for personal loss. My second husband, George, the man who filled our lives with laughter and warmth, was gone in the blink of an eye, leaving a void no number could quantify. Now, it's just me and my memories of him, and Ellie, my bright, 20-year-old stepdaughter who's currently tackling college. My own kid, Mike, he's a different story. Pulled together, sharp in a suit, practically a mirror image of me at that age, but with the added fire of youth. He married Sarah. Oh, she's a piece of work. You can read ambition all over her face, and not necessarily the good kind. They were both over the other day. Supposed to be helping me sort through George's stuff, God knows there's enough of it, but it was turning into more of a drag than help, especially when Sarah found the jewelry set. It was a real beauty, shiny stones, intricate gold work, the sort of thing that's been in George's family for ages. Ellie's birthright, by all accounts. Sarah, she zeroed in on that set like a hawk on a field mouse. Joan, oh my God, check this out. She squealed, as she flicked her phone out and started snapping pictures. Easy there, Sarah, I called out, a bit startled by her enthusiasm. She fluttered around, barely listening to me. Can I take this with me? Can I? Now, I've never been one to shuffle words around. No, Sarah, I said, firm but calm as the day is long. That's Ellie's. It's been promised to her. The change in Sarah's demeanor was instant. Like a switch had flipped. Her face twisted up, her eyes went cold. She didn't even pretend to keep up the sweet daughter-in-law act. Really, Joan? After all we've been doing for you? Her voice was sharp, like she was trying to cut something open. I didn't budge an inch. Yeah, really, I shot back. Not raising my voice, but making damn sure she could hear me loud and clear. Ellie's his daughter. It's her family's. End of. With a huff that could have blown the house down, she turned on her heel and marched out, not even bothering to slam the door. Good riddance, I thought. Mike, he just shrugged it off, raking a hand through his hair as if he had bigger things on his mind. She'll get over it, Mom, he mumbled before following a storm of a wife out the door. I just shook my head, leaning against the cold marble counter. Is this what family comes down to? I muttered to myself. Sorting through George's things, I paused now and then to wipe my eyes. Funny how the world can shift on its axis in such a short time. I was just about to close the living room curtains when my phone rang, cutting through the quiet, just like that unexpected visitor who shows up right when you've settled in for the evening. Mike's picture flashed on the screen. My heart did a small somersault. We hadn't parted on the best of terms last we spoke, on account of Sarah and the jewelry. Hey, Mom, he started, no hellos, no how are yous. His voice was as tight as a drum, you could tell he was walking on eggshells. Sarah's pretty torn up about the whole, jewelry thing. I sighed, loud enough for him to hear. Mike, we talked about this already. That set belongs to Ellie. It's not just some trinket. He cut me off, quick as a whip. But Mom, she's really upset. She's been crying and everything. Ellie's got so much coming her way, what's one jewelry set to her? The irritation gnawed at me, hot and unyielding. Ellie has as much claim to it as Sarah has to the tears she's shedding, I said. My words were blunt, but I wasn't in the mood to sugarcoat things. Mike's voice rose, incredulous. Are you serious, Mom? We're talking about Sarah here. My wife. And I'm talking about Ellie, your stepsister. The daughter of the man who left the jewelry set behind. I fired back, the sting of disbelief thick in my voice. There was a beat of silence before Mike snapped. She could use some support too, Support's one thing, Mike, I said, my words sharp, but gifting her your sister's inheritance is something else. Tell Sarah to get her own. He wasn't going to back down. She feels like you don't care about her, about us. You're pushing your own son away. My patience was wearing thinner than an old dime. That's not fair, and you know it. If she wants jewelry, there's plenty of shops around. Mike huffed into the phone, a bitter sound. Wow, Mom, just wow. Yeah, wow, I echoed, my voice heavy with sarcasm before I could stop myself. Try putting your family first for once. That's when the line went dead, the click echoing like a door slamming in my head. I stared at the phone for a long minute before I dropped it onto the couch next to me. I was shaking, a cocktail of anger and hurt seething in my chest. I wasn't the bad guy here, was I? The house was silent around me, the weight of the confrontation heavy in the air. In that moment, I understood how greed could grab hold of someone, twist up their insides, and squeeze until they no longer recognized right from wrong. When Ellie came back home, the front door barely whispered its usual creak. Her eyes were red, telltale signs that she'd given in to the tears the way we all do when life gets too heavy. We wrapped our arms around each other, nothing needed to be said. The ache of losing George hung in the air, thick and palpable, but it was a sort of comfort having her close. Later we sat, sifting through old photos, chuckling through the wetness in our eyes as we placed memories onto the mantel, like building a little shrine to the man who'd meant the world and then some. That's when Mike and Sarah decided to barge in, no knocking, no bell. They pounded into the quiet like a clap of thunder, not caring much for the mood. Hey, we need to talk, Sarah announced, her eyes darting toward Ellie. We'll give you $4,000 for that jewelry set. Just like that, all business, like she was buying a used couch off the internet. Ellie's lips tightened, the shadow of her dad's stubbornness right there on her face. That set has been in my family for generations. It's staying in the family. And $4,000? It's worth more than that. Sarah launched right back at her, words sharp and mean. You don't need it. You probably won't even wear it. Her voice was rising, enough to shake the framed pictures. I got up, my legs stiff. I walked over to Sarah, standing closer than I usually do, mustering all the calm I had left. You'll do well to keep a civil tongue in your head. Sarah's face twisted into something ugly, her nostrils flaring. Mike stood aside, tight-lipped, looking at his shoes as if they were the most interesting things in the world. Enough, I said, my voice sounded strange in my ears, too calm. Out of my house. Now. Mike finally looked up, his eyes mean slits. So it's always Ellie, huh? No room for your son? For your daughter-in-law? His words, stupid and sharp, tried to get under my skin. I let them glance off me. Out, I said again, a steel thread in my voice, before I lose my temper. They went, Sarah slamming the door hard enough to rattle the glass in the windows, leaving Ellie and me in the freshly stirred silence. We sat back down, suddenly so tired, clinging to each other. We didn't have to talk about it, we just knew. This kind of grief, it was heavy enough without adding a side of greed and ugly words. The farewell to my husband was a somber sea of black attire and hushed voices. Neighbors, poker buddies, and partners from the firm, George's absence left a hole in the lives of many. As Ellie and I clung to each other, a steady stream of George's friends and our family offered their embraces and whispered comforts. He was a good man, they said. The best, another would agree, shaking their head. The steady cadence of condolences was almost rhythmic, apologies, tissues passed, hands held. Some recalled George with stories that brought smiles even through the tears. He could fix anything, a cousin recalled. Remember that barbecue when he saved the day with duct tape? That got a few watery chuckles. But in all this, there was a glaring empty space. Mike and Sarah. My own son and daughter-in-law were conspicuously absent, a silence that screamed louder than any words of comfort could soothe. Nobody mentioned it, but their absence was a specter over the whole affair. After the ceremony, weighted by the heaviness of the day, Ellie and I returned home. Our door was a mess, wood splintered all around the lock. I felt my stomach drop. I knew what they were after before we even saw the empty space in the wall where the safe used to be. We've been robbed, Ellie said. Her eyes were wide, scared, but mad too. I was shaking, anger boiling inside me like nothing before. Went straight for the security system, pulled up the footage, and there they were, Mike and Sarah, faces clear as day. I didn't even think. Grabbed the phone and dialed his number. When he picked up, trying to sound all sleepy and innocent-like, I nearly lost it. If you don't get those heirlooms back here within the hour, I'm ringing the police. My voice was like ice. At first, there was silence, then Sarah, never one to miss a chance to jab, snorted, "You wouldn't dare." It was like she threw fuel right into my fire. "You think I'm playin', girl?" My hands were shaking, but I kept my voice steady. "You're on camera. Both of ya. As clear as daylight, stuffin' my heritage into your dirty pockets." There was a beat of silence, then Mike. He had this squeak in his voice when he got scared. "Mom, we..." "Shut up, Mike," Sarah cut in, her voice twisted with something nasty. "She's bluffing." I didn't miss a beat. Cameras don't lie, Sarah. And they sure don't bluff. I wanted to reach through that phone and wipe that smug tone right off her face. "You got one chance to make it right. You hear me? One." Mike was begging now. "Please, Mom, I can explain." "Ain't nothing to explain. You broke into my house and stole from Ellie, from me, from your dad's memory." "You can't prove it," Sarah said, but her voice wavered. She knew the game was up. I laughed, but there wasn't no humor in it. "Oh, I can. And I will. Get those jewels back or get ready to talk to the cops about what you did. The line went dead. I stood there, phone in hand, heart racing. Never thought it would come to this. Ellie was crying again, the kind of tears you cry when you're so mad you can't see straight. We cleaned up the mess they made, but it was like a bad taste that wouldn't go away. We waited, but a part of me, a big part, knew they weren't gonna make it right. Some folks, they just don't know how. Mike stomped in the next morning like he owned the place, overnight bags under his eyes telling stories of a sleepless night. Without a hello, he chucked a bag onto the ground where it hit with a pathetic sound and slid a few inches before stopping. Its contents jingled, echoing eerily in the tense air. I bent down, my heart racing, and unzipped the bag. Inside, jewelry pieces spilled out. But something was off. The color wasn't quite right, they lacked the weight of real gold and the sparkle of true jewels. Ellie, who had been biting her lip in silent hope, let out a whimper, her hand shaking as she picked up a necklace that looked like a toy you'd win at a carnival. "What is this crap, Mike?" I spat the question out. The necklace felt cold and light in my palm. "They're the jewels, Mom," Mike mumbled, not quite meeting my eyes. I squinted down at the necklace in my hand, turning it over. It was then I noticed the clasp was too shiny, too clean for something that was supposed to be decades old. My blood went from simmer to boil in a split second. "Jewels?" I laughed, bitter and loud. It was too much. "You think I'm an idiot?" Mike shifted from one foot to another, a twitch starting in his cheek. "Well, that's what we grabbed." "Grabbed from where, a damn costume shop?" I threw the necklace back into the bag. It landed with a plastic clack that said everything we needed to know. Ellie burst out, tears streaming down her face, accusations mixed with sobs. "How could you do this to us? To your own family?" I should have felt something looking at my son standing there, this broken man-child we raised. But all I felt was a cold hard anger. It was clear even the semblance of family was gone, burned up by greed and lies. "Mom, Mike started, but his words were slurred by the corner of his mouth that wouldn't stop twitching. "Save it," I found myself saying, cutting him off. The weight of the phone in my hand was suddenly the only real thing in the room. Mike's eyes darted to the phone. "Come on, you're not really gonna call the cops on your own son, are you?" "Watch me." The numbers on the keypad felt oddly solid under my fingertips. "This is the last straw. You don't understand." "No, you don't understand." I stood firm, phone to my ear, as the dial tone buzzed, waiting for my next move. "I gave you a chance to fix this mess. And look what you brought me. Cheap fakes." "Mom, I swear to you," but even as Mike tried to speak, there was a shifty, desperate look in his eyes that told me he had no truth to offer. The ringing stopped, replaced by the operator's voice. 911, what is your emergency?" I glanced at Ellie, her face streaked with tears, the fake jewels lying discarded between us, and back at Mike, who looked like a cornered animal. "Yes," I said into the phone, my voice steady. "I'd like to report a theft." I was standing in my kitchen, trying to make sense of the chaos the past hours had unleashed, when the call came in. It was brief. The cops had turned over Mike and Sarah's place and found what was missing, plus a little performance from Sarah for free. Pulling up to the station, I couldn't help the acid churning in my stomach. Walking in, the officer on duty nodded at me. "We found your items," he said. "No pleasantries, just down to business as usual." Sarah was in full drama mode when I saw her behind the glass, flaring up the second she spotted me. "This is all your fault, Joan," she screamed, her face a twisted snarl of blame and mascara trails. "Excuse me?" I couldn't help my eyebrow shooting up. "You two are the ones in hot water, not me." "But you pushed him into it," she shrieked, hands gripping the bars, knuckles white. I shook my head. "No, Sarah. You pushed. You screamed for diamonds and he jumped." Mike sat there, head hung low, not even a shadow of fight left in him. When our eyes met, he muttered, I just love her too much, alright? Love? I snorted. Is that what you call it? Looks more like stupid to me. Watch your mouth. Sarah snapped like a cornered animal. Spare me, honey, your act doesn't work on me. The back and forth could have gone on for hours, but I had enough. I needed answers. Why did you do it, Mike? Why'd you take from your stepsister? His voice was soft, resigned. I told you, I love her. She wanted those jewels so bad. And you thought stealing was the way to go? The words were out before I could help myself. Mike shuffled his feet, glanced at Sarah who was biting back words now, realizing maybe that silence was her best defense. Mike looked up, his eyes begging me to understand something that I couldn't. I didn't think it would hurt anyone. I stood there, feeling a gulf miles wide stretch between us. But it did, Mike. It really did. Seeing my eyes, maybe the steel in them, he deflated. I'm sorry, Mom. I messed up. Sarah was quiet now, watching, perhaps realizing the mess she'd coaxed Mike into was unraveling fast. I can't fix this, Mike. You're going to have to face the music on this one. I know, he said, and for a second he wasn't the man who had broken my trust, just the boy who used to call me Mom in that soft way that tugged at my heartstrings. I turned my back on both of them, Sarah's silent sobs and Mike's apologies fading as I walked out the station door. There was nothing left to say. The damage was done. It was out of my hands now, and in the arms of the law. As I sat there in the courtroom's stiff chair, my back aching from tension and the chill of justice about to be served, I had a sinking feeling. Mike and Sarah, dressed in their not quite I'm innocent but I'll try courthouse best, were out of options and out of favors. The judge had the kind of stern look you don't forget, not after you've been on the receiving end of it. The prosecutor was laying it on thick, words like calculated theft and breach of trust hanging in the air. Mike and Sarah's lawyer did his song and dance, talking about how they were good people who just made a bad mistake. Folks who fell on hard times, he said. I caught Mike's eye. He was pale, looking like he'd gladly swap places with anyone in the room. The judge called for order, and the room hushed to a standstill. Then he laid it out. The evidence against you is conclusive. The trust you've broken is not something that this court takes lightly. Sarah was fidgeting, a jittery energy about her. Your Honor, we really didn't mean any. Silence in my courtroom. The judge's gavel came down like a thunderclap, snapping us all upright. Sarah clammed up, looking like she might burst. The jury didn't need long, guilty on all counts. When the sentences were read, I could barely hold it together. Mike got 3 years and Sarah 5, no chance of parole. As they led Mike away, he turned to me, his voice just above a whisper. I'm sorry, Mom. My heart was heavy, a mother's love wrestling with the cold hard need for justice. You did this to yourself, I said, the words like lead on my tongue. Sarah tried to play tough, always the actress, but her voice shook as she spat. This is your doing, Joan. I fixed her with a look my own mother would have been proud of. No, Sarah. You two did this. And now you'll do the time. The courtroom buzzed with the shuffle of feet and soft murmurs of the crowd, but I sat still, letting the reality sink in. My own son, behind bars because he couldn't say no to his wife, and a daughter-in-law who would trade anything for a bit of sparkle, even her freedom. The hustle of people moving out didn't move me. I sat there until a friendly bailiff came over. Ma'am, we need to clear the room. I nodded and got up, my legs stiff. Yeah. I'm going. I didn't look back as I left the courthouse, the sky too bright for such a dark day. My heart was empty, but the truth had been laid bare, and they would pay for their choices. It was a hard lesson, but it was one they had to learn. The law had spoken, my conscience was clear, but the road ahead was nothing short of tough. It was over, at least for now. The rest was up to them. All right, so I had the jewels locked up tight in the safety box, The kind down at the bank with all those hefty doors and pin codes like something out of a spy film. They're collecting dust and Ellie, probably better off for it. Ellie was flipping through one of those gossip mags, lounging on the sofa. Our moments were quiet now, soaking in the still of our gotta-get-by house, like two peas in a pod. And that's something. The phone rang, shattering our quiet little bubble. It was Mike calling from his concrete suite. "Mom, I'm sorry, alright? I was a fool," he said, voice echoing off those prison walls. "Sorry's only the start, kiddo. You've gotta make it right." I pressed the phone against my ear, feeling the warmth like it was his cheek. In the background, I could hear other prisoners, their calls, their yells. A whole chorus of mistakes. "I know, Mom. It's just hard." A hot sigh escaped me. Hard's just another word for life, boy. You get strong or you get gone. You make your choices. Silence chewed at the line for a second. "I hear ya," he finally said. Ellie caught my eye, and she mouthed, "He's still your kid." I nodded at her, a lump in my throat the size of a fist. "You work it out in there, Mike. You hear?" "Yeah, Mom, I will." We hung up and I felt the air weigh down on me. Ellie scooted closer, shoulder to shoulder. "He means it, Joan." I nodded again. "Hope's the last to die," I muttered. Turning in for the night, I felt the sack of worries loosen just a touch. Mike had messed up big time, but he had a good head on his shoulders when he used it. Ellie, well, she was tough as nails, even if she didn't always see it. The world didn't stop spinning for anybody, no matter how hard you fell. We'd pick ourselves up, dust off, and start the climb again, because that's what you did. That's what we'd always do. And it didn't matter how fancy your words were, actions, they spoke the loudest. Ellie's steady breathing from her room was the night's comfortable soundtrack as I settled into bed. Yes, life was a mess, tangled and raw. But we were still kicking. And tomorrow, we'd kick even harder.